Hey everybody, welcome to the Leek. I'm John as always, and it's time for a Conspiracy Take the Crown draft recap. I just got back from my local game store, the Gamers Emporium, here in London, Ontario, at Oxford and Wonderland, if you're in the area, and I was drafting Take the Crown, and then we played a couple of matches, and I'm going to go over from behind my shoulder how that draft went, so you get to see exactly what I saw, and then I'll go over how my matches went, and we're going to jump into the draft right now. So here I am opening my first pack, and while I'm doing that, I think I will take this moment to explain that I am recording this after the draft, of course, so if it's kind of stilted commentary or I'm clearly stalling for time, it's because I'm not actually drafting as I'm talking. But I opened the pack and I jumped to the rare and I saw it was a Horn of Greed and then quickly jumped to the Conspiracy because I haven't really read the spoilers all that much. It was Echoing Boon, which didn't sound super amazing to me, although if I take it early I could try to build into it. There's a Crown Hunter Hireling, another new card that I had to read because it dealt with being the Monarch. I was honestly kind of lost going into this because I really didn't prepare too much. It's the only time that I really allow myself this in Magic, not reading spoilers and primers, is Conspiracy. I did it with the first Conspiracy and I did it with this Conspiracy. I looked over the cards, I read a couple of people's experiences with it, but that was about it. Garrulous Sycophant here, that will play a role later on in the draft recap portion. Illusory Informant sounded interesting. I thought, hey, that might be cool because I thought it was the other card. I thought it was the one where you guess the card, but it wasn't. Leovold's Operative, I had to give that a read. Wondered if maybe I wanted to draft two cards from a pack a little bit later on. I know that's powerful. I have Cogwork Librarian in my cube for a reason. Thorn of the Black Rose, Garbage Fire. Hey, Garbage Fire, that's a good card. I remember hearing about that, although not when you first pick it, and it only does 1 damage. Serum Vision's in there. Spectral Grasp, hey, that sounds kind of good. That's a pacifism that only affects me. That's a pacifism that turns a bomb off purely for me, but lets it continue hitting my other opponents. I like myself pacifisms. I like myself some removal. So Spectral Grasp is kind of sitting there on the front. Serum Visions I had in the back of my head as being a money card. I couldn't quite remember if it was or not, but I do just take the Spectral Grasp. So the next pack shows up, and we've got Exotic Orchard at the back, which I thought was potentially a money card, but I think I was confusing it with Forbidden Orchard, but even that I don't think is worth very much. Illusion of Choice is back there. Afa Guardhound seems okay, a 2/2 flash for 3 that could be a 2/5 or could make something else. +0/+3 seems okay to me. Obviously, power would be nicer, but oh well. We've got an Ogre Sentry, Flame Slash, well, that's going to go straight to the front. Voyaging Satyr, a Plummet, a Ghostly Possession, Strength in Numbers, Ill-Tempered Cyclops, Omen Speaker, Driver of the Dead, Hurly-Burly. Not much going on in this pack beyond Flame Slash. Exotic Orchard, I feel like you can potentially get mana screwed with that too much, so I do just take the easy Flame Slash. Next pack getting past me, there's another Illusion of Choice. Fiery Fall, hey, that's more red removal. It's expensive, but you could cycle it, I guess. There's an Entourage of Trest. I have to give that a read. Doom Traveler, he's good in one-on-one limited, not so much multiplayer. There's a Vaporkin. Murder, well, Murder's decent. There's an Overrun. Adriana's Valor is the Conspiracy, and a Mnemonic Wall. I think about Overrun for a second there, but I think about whether or not I'd ever actually be able to get that big of a board. So I just go for the Murder. Spot Removal is definitely less good in multiplayer, but it's still fine, so Murder it is. The next pack comes on over, and what do we got here? We've got an Omen Speaker, a Trumpet Blast, Canal Courier, Driver of the Dead. I have to give the Courier a read. It's a new card that I'm not familiar with. Thankfully, a lot of the cards I was familiar with. There was a number of Avacyn Restored ones and a ton of Theros. There's a God's Willing, speaking of that. Leovold's Operative, or Raise the Alarm. Well, Raise the Alarm's okay. Voyaging Satyr, another Sentry. Hey, there's the Phantasm. There's the Gessa card. Gruul Warchant, Adriana's Valor. So I stare at this Phantasm for a while, and I think about what the person on my left could possibly pick from this pack, and I just didn't know. I thought God's Willing might be a correct choice. Leovold's Operative could be a right choice, although they'd reveal it, so I would know. Gruul Warchant could have been the right choice. It seems a little bit early for Gruul Warchant. I really ultimately didn't quite know what the person beside me would pick. I knew the guy beside me, and I know that he tends towards blue-black, but none of these really seem like good cards. I'm willing to bet he took one, but I don't think he probably should have if it wasn't to do with his just pure love of blue-black. So ultimately, I do decide not to take the Spire Phantasm and take something else. And I'm really kind of sitting with the Gods Willing, the Omen Speaker. Going into the War Chant, I look at my cards several times and I see that, yeah, I'm in 3 colors at the moment. I've got 3 picks, 3 colors, so I have no idea where I'm going. But I take the Gods Willing to at least say that, hey, now I have 2 white cards. Next pack is there ready for me. There's a Custodian Peacekeeper on top. Well, that sounds pretty good. Sounds very good. That would be card number 5. That would be a tapper that would tap most things in the format, at least pre-counters and pre-buffs. Man, I love a tapper, and this seems like a fantastic place to pick up a tapper to me. Behind Custodian Peacekeeper, there's an Absorb V. I've yet to take a look at the rest of the pack just yet. That's how powerful a tapper can be, especially a 2-3 tapper. You can't quite see the power and toughness in this shot, but it is a 2-3 as opposed to the usual 1-1. Rest of the pack, we've got an Overwhelm, another Murder, a Hexplate Golem, another Assemble the Rank and Vial. So Peacekeeper just seems like the snap pick to me. I take it, I count the cards, and I announce to the table that it is going to be worth 5. Picking up the next pack, I take a look, and there's a Netcaster Spider and a Driver of the Dead, a Hurly-Burly, Lay of the Land, another Omen Speaker, Traumatic Vision, Nessian Asp. Oh boy, Nessian Asp. That seems a little bit late. That's a really, really, really ridiculously good card. But it would be my 4th color if I do decide to take it. If I want to stick in one of the other colors, I could take something else, but nothing else was really good. I do take the Nessian Asp, and I do have to show it to the guy at the end of the table, as he had drafted the informant that makes you look at somebody's cards. So I do draft the Nessian Asp, and hope that maybe green is where I go. I've taken everything except for a blue card at this point, I think. At the back of the deck, we have a rare Conspiracy, Hold the Perimeter. So at the beginning of my upkeep, I get a 1/2 Defender creature. At the beginning of everybody else's upkeep, the first one, not all of them, they get 1/1s that can't block. So I basically get a creature that can block their 1/1s, and it encourages them to kind of fight amongst themselves, because each of them can kind of get in for some damage early in. Rest of the pack, we've got a Strength in Numbers, Ghostly Possession, a Dismiss, Ogre Sentry. I look at my cards again. At this point, I'm really thinking about, do I just grab a 5th color? Like, what do I do here? This draft is kind of going a little bit strange. So yeah, Ogre Sentry, Ghostly Possession, Crown Hunter, Sycophant, Illusion of Choice. I wonder if maybe there's voting that's going to happen. Caller of Gales. Weird pack. I look at my picks again. I just don't know what to take here. It's around this point where I think, oh boy, this draft is going to go somewhere, and it's not going to go somewhere good for me. So eventually I do decide, it's fun. I'm not going to draft this set too much. Let's take a wacky Conspiracy. So I do take the Hold the Perimeter. On to the next pack, we take a look. We've got an Unnerve, a Wild Griffin, a Scout, a Raise the Dead, Gleam of Resistance, a Rogue's Passage, a Foil Ghostly Possession. This pack, again, I'm not quite sure what to take. Unnerved just doesn't seem good. I take a look at my picks again because I'm so all over the board at this point. Unnerved doesn't seem great, although I would get a lot of cards out of it discarded across all 3 opponents if everybody's still in. Raised Dead's not really going to do it. Gleam of Resistance, I'm sort of leaning towards white a little bit. I've got 2 white cards compared to most other things. Unnerved kind of gets pushed to the front, and I do decide to take it. I mean, cards that say each opponent are powerful, so I take it. I'm not sure if it was the right choice. I may think maybe the Griffin was the correct choice there, but I take it. Next pack comes around. I think this might be my pack that I opened back around. Echoing Boon is there. I take a look at it and read it again, trying to figure out what the heck does it do? And it was definitely attempted to be played wrong in one of our matches, and I probably would have played it wrong as well. I read the Thorn of the Black Rose. Well, I did just take a black card. It's not a good one, but I could take Thorn of the Black Rose. I look at my pack again, thinking that, I've got the Flame Slash, so maybe I just try red. Stone Shock Giant is a really good card. It's surprising to see it this late, so I do take it and figure, well, maybe red's open. Maybe I will head in that direction. Next pack comes up, and we've got Plummet, Ghostly Possession, Illusion of Choice, Ill-Tempered Cyclops, Assemble the Rank and Vial, which I don't really care for. The Cyclops is in red, and I am starting to decide, well, maybe the red plan is the way to go. It's not the best creature, but it's probably better than a possession or a plummet or a strength in numbers. And so if I catch up with myself, I think I'm answering a question at this point, possibly. I do decide to take that Ill-Tempered Cyclops. Let's smash cut to when I actually take that card. There we go. I took the card. I am not sure what I was doing. I think I was answering a question, possibly what happens if you have to guess a card, but you get to look at their card or something like that. Anyways, next pack, we've got an Overrun, a Raised Dead, Ghostly Possession, a Hexplate Golem. I'm not really in green, but that Overrun's super late. I take a look. I see that I've got that Nessian Asp, which is really good. I sort my cards a little bit there, and I figure, Overrun's powerful. Maybe green's open, I guess, or... Actually, that's not where I take the Overrun. Spoiler alert, I take an Overrun later. I took a Mnemonic Wall there because I decided, well, maybe I will push into blue. Time for the next pick. The pack shows up, and inside of this pack is an Ogre Sentry, a Trumpet Blast, a Voyaging Satyr, and an Adriana's Valor. Nothing really great. Like, Ogre Sentry, I guess, could block, and in a multiplayer game, raising your defenses is not a bad strategy. I like it more than Adriana's Valor, and I'm not really in green, so yeah, I take that Ogre Sentry. Next pack gets passed, and hey, look at that, there's an Overrun. So, spoiler alert, this is where I take the ridiculously late Overrun. Obviously, it's not as good in multiplayer because it usually kills one person, and if it's not killing the last person, it's not as good, but I take it anyways to, at the very least, hate it out a little bit. Last pack, or not last pack, second last pick, we've got a Driver of the Dead or a Sylvan Bounty. I still don't know where I am. I'm maybe in black, so I take that over the Bounty. And last pick is a Strength in Numbers. So at the end of pack 1, I have no clue what's going on. I think I'm white, and I think I'm probably red at this point. That's about all I know, but we're going to go on to pack 2. Opening up pack 2, we take a look at the rare and what's in the back so that I can figure out any of the complicated stuff. Hey, Arcane Savant, I know what that card does. This card, you get to take any instant or sorcery from your sideboard and say, hey guys, if I cast Savant, I get to cast this spell for free. Summoner's Bond, I try to give this a read, see what Double Agenda does. It sounds interesting, and it sounds like something that could work. Smuggler Captain, I talked about that in my Crack-A-Pack yesterday. Merfolk Scout, there's some good stuff in this pack. Deathwind, yeah, this is a good pack, but I'm not taking Arcane Savant. I can take whatever instant or sorcery that I want in the rest of this draft, stick it on him, and get it for free. So I do take it, and I'm not decidedly in blue, but it was around that point where I said, you know what, I want to play that card. I really want to play that card, so we're going to push into blue as hard as we can, I think, and maybe go blue-white. Next pack gets passed to me. Riley, the guy beside me, very clearly showing everybody that he got a foil Birds of Paradise in that pack. So this one's got a Kiln Fiend, a Cloaked Siren, hey, another Custodian Peacekeeper, a Garbage Fire, which would be for 2, Natural Unity, a Spy Kit, a Cameo of the Crescent Moon, which is interesting. It could give kind of everybody an advantage, and it gives everybody an advantage before me. I do push it to the front, but it's not quite what I'm leaning towards. I almost pushed it to the front just because it was blue, to be honest. There was another of those Hounds that are pretty good. Altar's Reap, not really what I want. Kiln Fiend. At this point, I am also keeping an eye open for instants and sorceries that I might want to take in any color. Peacekeeper, I already took one for 5, so this one, even though I'm taking it for 2, it would also tap 5s. So yeah, I'm kind of thinking about that Custodian Peacekeeper, kind of thinking about the Hound. The Cami at this point, I've kind of decided against. It is still sitting at the front, but I did relatively quickly decide that was out. Yeah, Custodian Peacekeeper ends up being the second one, and even though that one's a 2, you do count the highest number, not the combined number as some people thought. There was a Garbage Fire that was attempted to be cast for 15, and a Peacekeeper that somebody thought was lower because they picked it in that pack. But no, they do count the highest number. But I did take my second one. Fester Gloom is in this pack. There's a Hurly Burly, another Sycophant. There's a Caller of Gales, which is pretty good. Making your stuff fly is always decent. I believe at this point I was pointing out what had happened across the table from me. The guy that I'm passing to had picked up the Smuggler Captain, the guy that when you cast him, he gets to go and get whatever card you want. The card that he named was Kaya, Ghost Assassin. So he had a Smuggler's Captain that whenever he played, he went to go dig in his deck and get Kaya out. I guess it wasn't actually this pick where it happened. It would have been one back or 2 back. Guldra's Spectre, I take a look at him. I'm not really in black yet, but it seems like a super good card. Gaining 3 life whenever any creature dies that an opponent controls, and I have 3 opponents. It seems really good. Seems really, really good. There is another Peacekeeper at the back, and there is one of those crabs that become gigantic and hexproof. So really, at this point, I'm kind of torn between, do I continue flip-flopping on colors or do I settle in blue-white? And I decide, let's settle in blue-white. And I take the giant hexproof crab. Next pack, we've got a Fang of the Pack and a Havenghoul Vampire, which I had to read a few times. I've played with it. I was around when it came out in, I believe, Dark Ascension? Maybe Avacyn Restored, but I couldn't quite remember it. Hollowhench Spirit seemed okay. Goblin Racketeer, another Ogre Sentry, Shambling Goblin. Not much going on in this pack, to be honest here. Reviving Dose, bleh. Ill-Tempered, bleh. Other thing, bleh. So really at this point I'm still haven't decided on white quite yet, so I do think about that Havenghoul Vampire a few times, but then I do push that Hollowhench Spirit up to the front, or I do in a little bit, giving you just a little bit of a spoiler as to what happens here. Flipping through the pack some more, I'm trying to figure out what do I do in this draft. At this point I think, I do have that Spectral Prison, I do have a couple of good white cards. Let's take the Spirit, it's mine, in the pile it goes. Next pack is ready to go. There's a Coveted Peacock right on top, which seems really good. A 3/4 flyer for 5, and I can goad creatures. Sounds awesome. Incendiary Descent, not really what I'm going to be. I'm still thinking a little bit about red, but it's kind of starting to fall off. Tormenting Voice, Traumatic Visions, Blood Toll Harpy. Not much going on in this pack beyond that Peacock. So I do take the Peacock and decide, yeah, blue's going to happen, and it's going to be blue-white, I think. Next pack comes along, there's a Mnemonic Wall on top. A Hired Heist is the conspiracy. I give that one a read to figure out what it is. It's basically curiosity to a creature of your choice. There's a Servitor and a Fiery Fall and a Doomed Traveler and a Hail of Arrows. Well, that sounds pretty good. Getting to do basically fireball to attacking creatures sounds really good to me. So I do take that Hail of Arrows, especially because I'm already thinking about heading white anyways. Pretty happy to have some removal. This pack, we've got a Tunneler, a Kiln Fiend, a Scout, an Operative, a Kite Sail, another Asp. Another of these Asps. So I talked about in a Cracker Pack, I think yesterday, about these cards that are missing like the shadow layer on the art. And that Nessian Asp is missing the shadow layer as well. It's way, way, way lighter than it should be just in the art. Anyways, I take a Raise the Alarm because, hey, who doesn't like a Raise the Alarm, right? Next pack, we take a look. We've got a Shambling Geist, a Fleeting Distraction. I'll push that to the front. It's blue. Why not? And then, hey, a Custody Soulcaller. So this guy's interesting. I don't think he's remotely as good as people think he might be on first read. You do get to take a creature from the graveyard to the battlefield, and that's awesome. But it's going to be a 1-drop a lot of the times, and the most times it's going to be a 2-drop. You do not rarely attack all 3 opponents at the same time in a game of Conspiracy. That's a great way to make enemies and be dead very quickly. But I do take it anyways, because if I do get it for 2, it should be okay. And even for 1, I've got, the potential of a Doomed Traveler or something. We've got an Omen Speaker here and a Traumatic Visions, a Bronze Sable. I think about the counter spells. Am I a counter deck? I don't think so. There's a Ballot Broker, which would let me get an extra vote, although I haven't really even seen any of the voting cards come around yet. So I do just take the Omen Speaker and say, hey, it's a decent card, it's in blue, it's in my colors, I'll take it. Next pack, we've got Altar's Reap, Carnage Dude. The Hound came back, as did a Cloaked Siren. The Cloaked Siren is a nice surprise creature. A 3/2 flash flyer for 4 is always good. Guard Hound is another flash creature, so really it's the battle of flash creatures here, and I do decide to take that one, just because I can use it both offensively and defensively, and that seems like a good plan to me. Next pack, we've got a Kite Sail, a Palace Sentinels, Hurly Burly, another conspiracy that's not very good, Echoing Boon, the one that I've read a billion times, and I take time again to read it over and figure out, is this a card I want? I, at this point, take a look to see what instants and sorceries do I have. Do I have pump spells that I want to copy one single time on my own creatures? Not really. And it doesn't work on opponent's creatures, so it just seems like a terrible conspiracy to me. So I decided not to take it. I figure, you know what? I am in white, so Palace Sentinels really seem like the only pick here. I again give Echoing Boon another look, just because it's so hard to understand what that card does, and I think that's why we did have some mistakes with it being played. But I do just take the Palace Sentinels and figure, hey, it'll be nice to be king. Reviving Dose is the only white card here. The red cards are not any reason for me to switch at this point, so I take the white card for the sideboard that you don't really have in this format and figure, may as well, why not? Last few picks of Pack 2, we've got ourselves a Luke Rakata, a Tormenting Voice, and a Hexplate Golem. Not going to play any of these. I don't want to play against a 2-4 Vigilance, so we'll take it. Last pack, hey, 2 white cards. Doom Traveler seems totally fine as the second last pick. It's not great being just a 1-1 in a multiplayer format, but I'll do it. And last pick is just a Kite Sail. So end of pack 3, I now know I am blue and white, and so I can finally start to take cards in my colors and not flip-flop too much. Pack 3 are Rare as a Desertion, which I had to quickly check what the price was on it because it sounded like maybe a card that could see some play, but it ended up being like $1.60 or something. So I push, as you might have seen, a Spectral Grasp right to the front of the pack there. There's a Trumpet Blast, but not much else really going on in the pack, so I did just take the removal, or the conditional you can't attack me removal, which seems good. This pack's got a Sycophant and... I believe this was the point where actually the guy passing to me opened the Kaya and named the Kaya on the Smuggler, and I was just kind of amazed that that actually happened, and that was super crazy that that was going to be pulled off eventually. But we'll get back to this pack in just a second. There we go. We've got a Trumpet Blast, an Absorb V, a Throne Warden, which seems okay. Zealous Strikes, hey, another Hexproof Crab. Shipwreck Singer, well, I'm not black, unfortunately. Storm Chaser, hey, Ghostly Prison. That's worth a few bucks or so. Plus, it's just a really great card to be nice and defensive. So I do eventually decide to push that to the front and take it, because, hey, I'm happy to not be attacked. Next pack, we've got ourselves a Mnemonic Wall, another Fiery Fall, Raised Dead, Caller of Gales, God's Willing, there's a Prey Upon. God's Willing gets pushed kind of like behind the Mnemonic Wall, because I still think I want the Mnemonic Wall. Hidden Heist is the Conspiracy, there's Noble Banneret. Hey, what does this do? 3/3 for 4 that I name a creature, and if I control that creature in a Noble Banneret, it's a 4/4 lifelink, and the other creature gets +1/+1 in lifelink. That sounds pretty good. And I do have to name a card, and so I start thinking, ooh, what could I name? What could I name? Or no, I don't name the card. I don't name the card until I draft a card. Correct? Yes. As you draft a creature card, you may reveal it. Yeah. So I start thinking, maybe Doomed Traveler could be okay. Getting a 2/2 lifelinker for really cheap with this. I do have 2 Peacekeepers, so maybe I could name Peacekeeper. At this point, I kind of wish this happened a little bit earlier in the draft, but in pack 3, I still bet I can get something for it. Next pack, pick it up. What do we got? Kiln Fiend, Raise the Alarm. Well, I guess that goes to the front. Vaporkin can go to the front, sure. Lieutenant of the Guard, Hail of Arrows, Weight Advantage, another Rare Conspiracy. Each creature you control assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power. Well, I've drafted some interesting things. I've drafted an Omen Speaker, which is a 1/3. Pal Sentinels are 2/4s. Custodian Soulkeeper or Peacekeepers are 2/3s. Station's a 2/3. Wait a minute. Almost everything in my pile has higher toughness than power. I think I might just have to pick that Weight Advantage, and boy do I ever. Next pack shows up. We've got ourselves a Hidden Heist and a Wings of the Guard, an Ascended Law Mage. Well, hey, I like 3/2 hexproof flyers. Totally non-bow with the Weight Advantage that I just took, making it a 2/2 hexproof flyer rather than a 3/2, but I kind of forgot about that. I probably should have just taken that 1/1 flyer that attacks as at least a 2/2, but I do take the Ascended Law Mage. Next pack up, we've got ourselves a Disenchant, a Doomed Traveler, which I think I'm still thinking about pairing with the Noble Banneret. There's a Juniper Order Ranger, there's a Hired Heist, there's a Foil Gruul Warchant. I think about, do I have multiple Doom Travelers? What does Arcane Savant do? Does it have to be instant sorcery? Can I maybe get a free Gruul Warchant out of it? No, I can't. So I think about the Doom Traveler. Disenchant I think about, but the fact that you don't have a sideboard kind of hurts. I don't want to main deck that card. Wings of the Guard, still probably the right pick. I probably should have taken it. I'm not sure why I didn't take them higher. I think I always forget that they do attack as a 2/2 at a minimum. But I do just take the Doom Traveler, and I choose not to name it with Noble Banneret. This pack we've got, hey, another Peacekeeper. And at this point, that would be Peacekeeper number 3, which I would be pretty happy to name off the Banneret. Plus, it's still going to be tapping 5 drops. I start counting. Yeah, this is, pick number 5, so this isn't going to make my other Peacekeepers tap bigger things. It is still just going to be 5. But I take it, and I name it with that, and I write it down, and I've got 3 cards to trigger off the Banneret. Next pack, what do we get? Can we get anything else for our deck? We've got a Mnemonic Wall, a Gleam of Resistance, which, you know, is an instant I could get back with the Mnemonic Wall, I suppose. I push it to the front because maybe that's something I want. Otherwise, there's not too much going on in here. So Mnemonic Wall, Gleam of Resistance. I don't really think I want to be a big attacky guy. I think I want to be kind of defense. Plus, Mnemonic Wall with the weight advantage means that it is an 0-4 wall that hits for 4 if anybody does dare attack into it. I have no idea what I'm looking for here. I just no idea why I was looking there. Maybe I was trying to count creatures or something for Gleam, but I do just take the Mnemonic Wall. Next pack, we've got ourselves another Palace Sentinel, an Absorb V. So I already have an Absorb V, I think, or maybe I take this one here. But I'm trying to think about maybe Absorb V being the card that I want to cast off of the Savant, because 5 mana for a 3/3 that also drains somebody for 4 sounds pretty good. Now, Palace Sentinels make me the Monarch, and they attack for 4, and that's what I take, because a 4/4 for 4 that makes me a Monarch sounds pretty good. This pack, we've got yet another Sentinels, Fade into Antiquity. Really, this is between Sentinels. Do I want a Fade into Antiquity attached to my Savant? Do I want the Absorb V? I do decide to take the Absorb V, and I think Absorb V is what I'm going to attach to that Savant when I actually get into the match. This pack, we've got yet another Mnemonic Wall, a Caller of Gales, which really seems to suit a little bit more of an aggressive deck. Mnemonic Wall would let me pull something back. God's Willing is, you know, second copy of God's Willing is probably fine, and that is what I do decide to take, especially knowing that there's a fair bit of removal out there. Vaporkin's really the only pick here. It's not great, especially because it's going to virtually be a 1/1 in my deck with the weight advantage, but I do take it. We've got one more pack sitting there. I decide to look through my deck rather than pick it up, but I should pick it up very, very shortly. There we go. We've got Ghostly Possession, Plummet, Crown Hunter. Nothing here for me. There's a Ghostly Possession that I take. It's on color. Maybe it makes the cut, but it won't. This pack, we've got a Hidden Heist and a Disenchant. Disenchant, there's just no way I'm going to ever main deck it, and there's no sideboard, so I do take the Hidden Heist. Because, hey, I am playing blue. Maybe, you know, maybe I can name Custody, Soul, or Peacekeeper, and that will potentially, maybe, kind of, sort of work a little bit, even though I really want to keep them back and tap things down. But anyways, we've got one last pick that should be coming to us very, very shortly, and womp womp, it's just a kite sail. Nothing good. Alright, so that's the draft. It started out a little bit wonky, but we kind of got there. And this is the deck that I ended up building. Looks pretty interesting, so let's take a look at it in depth. Here's the 3 conspiracies that I decided to go with, all 3 that I drafted. Weight advantage, because most of my creatures have bigger toughness than power. Hold the perimeter, because I figured, hey, getting that 1/2 and encouraging my opponents to attack each other seemed like a pretty good idea. And I did take a Hidden Heist, naming Custody Soul, not Soul Keepers, Peacekeepers, because they were the ones that I had 3 copies of. I didn't know if I'd be attacking with them that much, but it doesn't cost me anything to play this card, so I may as well. In the 1-drop slot, we had a Doomed Traveler, which I knew wasn't going to be too impactful, but maybe I could get in some early damage, or at worst, he could be a chump blocker. And a pair of God's Willing, because I knew people were going to do things to my creatures, and I wanted to say no sometimes. In our 2-drop slot, we had a Vaporkin, which was a total non-bow with the weight advantage, a 1/1 flyer that can only block flyers for 2. I probably shouldn't have played that, but I really wanted a 2-drop. But I probably shouldn't have played that. Omen Speaker, on the other hand, a 3/3 for 1, or sorry, not for 1, for 2, that scries 2 when you have weight advantage was really good. And a pair of Spectral Grasps to keep my opponent's creatures at bay, at least for me. 3-drop slot was totally loaded with 3 Custody Peacekeepers, an Afa Guard Hound, a Skittering Crustacean, a Custody Soul Caller, and a Ghostly Prison. The Hound was especially great because I could make my creatures basically get +3/+0 because of the weight advantage. The 4-drop slot, we had the Noble Banneret, which was naming Custody Peacekeepers, a Palace Sentinels, an Ascended Lawmage, and a Hallowhenge Spirit. Ascended Lawmage, also kind of a non-bow with the weight advantage. Off in the 5-drop slot, we had a pair of Mnemonic Walls, which were virtual 4/4s thanks to the weight advantage, although they obviously couldn't attack. A Coveted Peacock, which definitely could attack, and again, higher toughness. And an Arcane Savant with an Overrun, which is the card that both matches I decided to exile at the start of the game, because I figured, hey, I can just sit there, and I can just build creatures, and then someday I can just play this card and give everything overrun and just stomp in for a ton, take out at least one player, if not a couple. And then, of course, we had a Hail of Arrows, which is a solid card when people are attacking me, especially in a game where you get to go late and you get to have a ton of mana available. And my land base was 10 plains and 7 islands. Probably slightly more islands than my mana pips would suggest I should have, but I did want to be consistent, so I did go with the 10-7. So with the draft finished and the deck built, we split into pods. And so the way that we played Conspiracy, and I think this is played in a number of places, is we split into 2 groups of 4, and then we got points for where we finished in that pod. So if you got first place, you got 4 points, second place 3 points, third place 2 points, and fourth place 1 point. Then we split into another 2 pods with the 2 winners of those 2 pods playing each other, and the 2 losers of the 2 pods playing each other, again getting 4, 3, 2, 1 points. And then overall, first, second, and third would get prizes, and if there was a draw in number of points, then it came down to the number of kills that you got. So I split off into my first pod with Riley, Alex, Ben, and me. Ben was playing Hymn of the Wild, a mythic conspiracy that allows all of your creatures to cost 1 less. The downside is you cannot play instants and sorceries. In addition to that, he had multiple natural identities for several creatures, which meant that he could tap a single green mana to give a counter onto it, plus some creatures that give counters. Just a crazy creature deck, and he got off to a very quick start, but got reined in a little bit with some removal. We very quickly said, hey, he's a threat. We need to stop him. Riley then, out of nowhere, started to take control with a looping of Summoner's Bond that let him get an Omen Speaker or a Thorn of the Black Rose whenever he cast the other. Plus, he had Hired Heists and Assemble the Rank and Vials for both of those creatures. And so as a result, he was casting creatures and grabbing creatures and casting creatures. He had 2 or 3 copies of both. It was crazy. Pretty quickly, he knocked Alex right out of the game, and he started to take over the game with a life total hitting as high as 48 due to a flying creature that I can't remember the name of right now, where he gains 3 life whenever an opponent's creature dies, plus other bad stuff happens. In addition to that, he was frequently the Monarch and had the card that made us all lose a life when he was the Monarch each turn, and he gains a life off of that. So he hit as high as 48. Clearly, the focus for me and Ben became killing Riley. Arguably, it should have been Riley picking somebody to get second place, but we did decide that we were going to be the underdogs and take him down. So I had a pair of Custody Peacekeepers out that would keep the Thorns of the Black Rose tapped down, meaning that Ben could crack in with his giant creatures without fear of them hitting Death Touch creatures. Riley, however, dropped a Marchese's Decree, which means that whenever you attack him, you lose a life for every attacking creature, and we had already been losing quite a bit of life, so we knew that we had to be hitting him for large amounts of damage because we'd be taking the damage just by turning our creatures sideways. But with my tappers and Ben's massive board of massive creatures, he was able to crack in for 19 damage on one big turn after a few other little turns and knock Riley down to a much more reasonable 11 life. However, it also totally left Ben completely open at only 4 life. And I realized that this had to be my moment. I would not live another turn cycle, especially if Ben ever decided to attack me. And even at that point, Ben simply probably could have attacked both me and Riley, given any number of little creatures that would have just won him the game, taking us both out. So I did backstab and threw 4 damage at Ben, taking him out of the game, knowing that that would keep me in the game for just a little bit. Riley's board had been decimated. There wasn't too much that he could do with the tappers, but I was also down to like 5 life or around there, meaning that I couldn't attack Riley either without just flat out dying. So I killed Ben and it was down to Riley. Riley had dug deep into his deck and was in real danger of decking himself and didn't have much of a board, but as I said, I couldn't really attack. I did throw in a couple of creatures here and there. Omen Speaker was really good because it was attacking for 3 because of my weight advantage, but I did eventually just go down to 2, taking Riley down to, I believe, something like 5 or 6 life. Riley at this point was just hitting a bunch of lands as he had scryed a bunch to the bottom, and I was drawing nothing much that was doing things. I was establishing my board, but that was about it. But then finally, I hit my Noble Banneret. With that Noble Banneret, I was able to attack in with the Peacekeeper and gain 4 life. I lost a life, but I gained 4 life, went up to 5, and on the next attack, I was able to attack in with 4 creatures, go back to 1, and then gain a bunch of life, but more importantly, finish Riley off. And so I won out of really nowhere. I thought I was toast pretty early on, but I won that first match, meaning that I went on to the winner's pod along with Riley. So the second match was Riley with Matt and George, the two winners of the other pod. Matt and George had both watched the finish between me and Riley, and so they knew that Riley's deck was a real threat if it was given time to go off. So with the help of my 1/1 goblins that everybody got at the start of the game, Riley was quickly attacked by Matt and George both. I just kind of sat back. I didn't do too much. I kind of let them just kind of bicker, and I stayed at a very healthy 20 life total. But then turn 5 happened. Riley was tapped out, had no creatures on board. I had 4 attackers. I dropped an Arcane Savant, I cast my free overrun, and I hit Riley for 14 damage, with massive help from the weight advantage. Omen Speaker hitting for 6 was pretty big, pretty darn big. So, Riley was taken out of the game by me. Another turn cycle, and George had set up his plan. Kami of the Crescent Moon and Horn of Greed meant that we were all drawing a minimum of 3 cards a turn. The Monarch was drawing 4 cards a turn. Completely ridiculous, just going through our deck so quickly. His plan was that he was running 45 cards. And so nobody would want to kill him because everybody wanted to keep drawing a whole bunch of cards, and then he would just deck everybody. I kept getting those gifts from him as much as possible until Matt decided to make a move to kill George off. Huge attack, tons of flyers, tons of stuff going on, but it was partially nullified by an arrow storm from me and some red removal from George. So George managed to live, but he did drop down to 2 life. And so once the turn came back to me, I had no real choice, and I just threw 2 damage at George and finished him off. Due to a quick sneak attack, I'd already taken Matt down to 7 as well, but our boards were getting kind of established on both sides. Any attack from him that didn't win the game, and I had a number of ways of blocking, and he knew that I had God's Willing and an Arrow Storm in hand, would have resulted in him being dead on the crackback, so we really couldn't do anything. So the boards went back and forth, back and forth. He eventually dropped a monstrous 100-handed one, meaning that I was going to need some big way of getting through a creature that can block 100 creatures. But I did. One little Custody Peacekeeper tapped down the 100-handed one, and it was enough for me to stomp through with my huge board, something like 9 or 10 attackers at that point, and finish him off. So I ended up in first place, winning both match 1 and match 2, giving me a full 8 points. And it didn't come to tiebreakers. Nobody was tied with me, but had they been tied, I had 5 tiebreakers with 5 kills. 4 kills, actually. 3 from that match and 1 from the previous match. No, 2 from the previous match, actually. So yeah, 5 kills. I killed 5 of my 6 opponents. So I won 5 packs of Conspiracy, and they are sitting here in my apartment. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with them. I'm not sure if I'm going to do some videos with them. I don't know if I'll crack them on stream between rounds on Twitch once I get back to doing that. I'm not sure what I'll do with them, but they're currently sitting here for future use. So that's going to wrap it up for my Conspiracy draft recap. I think I'm going to draft it probably a couple more times. We might be doing it at F&M next week. I won't record them and I won't recap them though, but it was definitely really fun. I'm honestly shocked at how well I did, especially early game 1. I thought I was just totally dead. But weight advantage turned out to be absolutely incredible, with almost all of my creatures having bigger butts than front sides. It was super fun. Anyways, definitely let me know how your Conspiracy draft went in the comments down below. As always, if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, you can find me on Twitter at @TheManaLeek. That's Leek, like the vegetable, not the card. You can also find me at Facebook.com/TheManaLeek and Twitch.tv/TheManaLeek. You've found me here on YouTube. You've got that comment section down below. Please make use of it. As well, click that thumbs up icon if you like the content, and if you haven't, click subscribe so that you can see more as soon as it goes up. As always, if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, let me know. Otherwise, see you all next time.